June 1940. France has fallen. The Nazi war machine stands on the coast of France, looking across the water. Only 20 miles of cold, gray ocean separate Hitler from London. The British army is shattered. Their tanks and guns were left behind at Dunkirk. Civilians are arming themselves with shotguns and pitchforks. To the world, England looks like a ripe fruit, ready to be plucked. Hitler calls it Operation Sea Lion. The plan is simple: destroy the Royal Air Force, cross the Channel, and march into London. History tells us the few in their Spitfire saved the nation. But what if they hadn't? What if the Luftwaffe had stayed focused on the airfields instead of bombing cities? The German plan was terrifying, but it was also a logistical nightmare. They were planning to cross the roughest seas in Europe using river barges and stolen motorboats. Today, we look at the invasion that never was. Was it a missed opportunity for Germany, or was Operation Sea Lion a guaranteed suicide mission from the start? Hitler's generals had a dream. They called it Operation Sea Lion. The goal was simple: land 250,000 men on the English coast in just 3 days. They wanted to capture London and end the war by Christmas. It sounded perfect on paper, but there was one massive problem. Germany didn't have enough ships, not even close. The German Navy was tiny compared to the British, so they got creative and desperate. They began seizing every boat they could find. They took nearly 2,000 river barges from across Europe. These weren't ocean-going vessels. These were flat-bottomed boats designed for calm rivers and canals. The plan was a suicide mission. Most of these barges didn't even have engines. They had to be towed across the choppy English Channel by tugboats. Imagine a slow, wooden boat filled with heavy tanks and shivering soldiers, bobbing like a cork in the middle of the ocean. If the wind picked up or a single British destroyer appeared, the invasion fleet would become a floating graveyard. The soldiers called them self-propelled coffins. The tactical goal was a massive landing zone between Folkestone and Worthing. Hitler's vision was to create a wall of steel on the south coast. They planned to unload thousands of horses and panzers onto the sand. But they were gambling everything on one thing: a calm sea and an empty sky. It was the greatest military what-if in history. The Germans were ready to jump, but they had no idea how deep the water really was. By August 1940, the British were on the ropes. The German Air Force, the Luftwaffe, was hammering the RAF every single day. British airfields were burning, pilots were exhausted, planes were being shot down faster than they could be replaced. Hitler was winning the air war. The path to an invasion was almost clear. Then, everything changed because of a single mistake. On a late August night, a German bomber accidentally dropped its payload on central London. It wasn't supposed to happen, but the British retaliated by bombing Berlin. Hitler was furious. He demanded revenge. He ordered the Luftwaffe to stop attacking the airfields and start bombing London instead. This was the Blitz. To the people on the ground, it was a nightmare, but for the RAF, it was a miracle. The pressure on the airfields suddenly stopped. The British mechanics could fix the runways. The pilots could finally sleep. This was the secret turning point of the war. If the Luftwaffe had stayed focused on the airfields for just 2 more weeks, the RAF might have collapsed. Without planes to defend the coast, the Royal Navy would have been defenseless against German dive bombers. Imagine the scene. The English Channel is empty of British planes. The self-propelled coffins begin their slow crawl across the water. Without a shield in the sky, the British fleet would be at the mercy of the Stukas. Hitler had the prize in his hand, but his pride made him reach for London instead of the finish line. Now imagine the Luftwaffe actually won. The RAF is gone. The sky is clear. The German barges finally start their engines. They are heading for England. Does Hitler win? Not even close. While the world watched the planes in the sky, they forgot about the monsters in the water, the British Home Fleet. The Royal Navy was the most powerful force on Earth. They had dozens of battleships and hundreds of destroyers. The German Navy was like a toy in comparison. Even without air cover, the British sailors were ready to fight to the death. The German barges were slow. They moved at the speed of a walking man. Imagine it is 2 a.m. The channel is pitch black. Suddenly, giant searchlights click on. The British destroyers appear out of the fog. They don't even need to fire their big guns. They can just ram the wooden barges. A 2,000-ton steel destroyer hitting a flat river barge is like a car hitting a cardboard box. Thousands of German soldiers would have been dumped into the freezing water before they ever saw a beach. Years after the war, military experts held a secret war game at Sandhurst. They used real maps and real data from 1940. The result? The Germans managed to land some troops, but within 24 hours, the Royal Navy cut them off. The German army was trapped. No food, no bullets, no way back. It wasn't an invasion. It was a massacre. The wooden wall of the British Navy was an invisible fortress. Hitler's generals knew it. That is why, deep down, they were terrified of the water. The maps were drawn. The barges were ready. The soldiers were waiting. But the order to go never came. Why? Because Hitler's generals finally faced the truth. Operation Sea Lion was a fantasy. Germany was the master of the land, but the British were the masters of the sea. You cannot conquer an island with riverboats and hope. The what-if of 1940 reveals a chilling reality. Even if the RAF had fallen, the English Channel would have become a massive graveyard for the German army. Hitler didn't stop because he was kind. He stopped because he was afraid. He knew that the moment his self-propelled coffins hit the waves, the Royal Navy would be waiting in the dark. History is decided by more than just brave pilots. It is decided by logistics, geography, and the brutal reality of the sea. The invasion of England remains the greatest almost story of World War II, a nightmare that stayed on paper because the reality was too terrifying to face. Dear audience, what do you think? Was Hitler right to blink, or did he miss his only chance to win the war? Comment below with your theory, and if you want to see more illegal engineering that changed the war, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss our next deep dive.